High Commander Vazix stood at the command center's panoramic window, his 4 arms clasped behind his back as he gazed at the crimson skies of Nexus Prime. The facility stretched before him, a testament to the Galactic Confederation's military might, or so he had always believed. "Sir, we have a situation." Lieutenant Cora's voice crackled through the comm. "There's been a breach in Sector 7. Vazix's secondary heart barely missed a beat. "Show me." The holoscreen materialized, displaying security footage from the outer perimeter. A single figure moved through the shadows, barely visible against the facility's dark walls. The intruder's movements were precise, calculated, almost beautiful in their deadly efficiency. "A human?" Vazix scoffed, his upper lip curling in disdain. "Send in the Praetorian Guard. This won't take long." "But sir," Cora's voice wavered, "the human, they've already—" An explosion rocked the facility's western wing, cutting off her words. The holoscreen split into multiple feeds, showing chaos erupting across different sectors. Vazix watched, his mandibles twitching with growing unease as the human systematically dismantled his security forces. "Impossible," he muttered, watching a squad of elite guards fall to the intruder. The human moved like water, flowing between their plasma bolts with impossible grace. "They're supposed to be clumsy brutes." Another explosion, closer this time. The command center's lights flickered ominously. "Sir," a new voice, panic-stricken. "They're accessing the mainframe. Our defensive protocols are being overridden." Vazix slammed his fist against the console. "Lock down everything! Release the combat drones! We can't! The systems aren't responding!" The lights went out completely, plunging the command center into darkness. Emergency backups kicked in, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Vazix felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. Through the comm came a sound that made his exoskeleton crawl. Laughter, human laughter. "Who are you?" Vazix demanded into the general channel. "What do you want?" The laughter stopped. A voice responded, smooth as polished steel. "You really don't remember, do you, Commander? Project Prometheus ring any bells?" Vazix's blood ran cold. "That's classified. How did you—" "Oh, I know all about your little experiments," the voice continued, an edge of barely contained rage beneath its calm surface. "I know what you did to those human colonists. To my family." Another explosion, this one taking out the facility's main power core. As alarms blared and his officers scrambled in panic, Vazix realized his fatal error. He hadn't just allowed a human into his facility. He'd let in someone with nothing left to lose. The voice came again, closer now. "You thought we were just another species to be studied, dissected, experimented on. But you forgot something crucial about humans, Commander." "And what's that?" Vazix asked, despite himself. "We don't forget, and we never, ever forgive." The emergency lights went out, leaving only darkness and the sound of approaching footsteps. Vazix watched helplessly as his security feeds painted a picture of methodical destruction. The human moved through his facility like a vengeful spirit, leaving nothing but chaos in their wake. What terrified him most wasn't the violence, it was the precision. "Pull up Archive 7 records," he barked at his trembling intelligence officer. "Everything we have on Project Prometheus." "Sir, the human, they're in the ventilation system," Lieutenant Cora's voice shook. "Our thermal scanners can't track them. The signature keeps shifting." A chilling realization hit Vazix. "They're using our own adaptive camouflage technology against us." The footage from Sector 12 showed 3 Praetorian Guards, the pride of their military, backing into a defensive formation. They were professionals, the best of the best. Their end came in under 10 seconds. A shadow dropped from above. The first guard's plasma rifle was wrenched away and used to incapacitate the second. The third managed to fire once before a combat knife found a gap in his armor. All 3 collapsed before their neural networks could even register the threat. "Sir," his intelligence officer called out, "I found something. The human, their name is Marcus Blackwood, former Special Forces. But that's not the interesting part." "What is?" He was reported dead 3 cycles ago, in an accident at Research Station 9. Vazix's mandibles clicked in agitation. Research Station 9, where they conducted the more questionable aspects of Project Prometheus. Through the facility's speakers came that unnervingly calm voice again. "Finding all those interesting files, Commander. The ones you tried so hard to bury." Vazix watched another screen as his elite shock troops were systematically eliminated. Blackwood moved with augmented speed, his movements enhanced by what appeared to be stolen Confederation tech. But there was something else, something unnatural about his capabilities. "The experiments," Vazix whispered. "They worked." "Better than you ever imagined," Blackwood's voice replied. "Your scientists wanted to create the perfect soldier by combining human adaptability with Confederation biotech. Congratulations, you succeeded. But you should have made sure all your test subjects were actually dead." Another security feed showed Blackwood accessing a data terminal, his fingers flying over the haptic interface. Warning messages flashed across Vazix's screens as classified files were breached one after another. "He's not just here for revenge," Lieutenant Cora realized. "He's gathering intelligence. Everything about Project Prometheus, all our black sites, every illegal operation we've ever run." "Stop him!" Vazix roared. "Initiate purge protocols." "Too late," Blackwood's voice sang through the speakers. "Already got what I needed. But don't worry, I'm not leaving yet. We still have so much to discuss." The facility's remaining lights began to strobe, creating disorienting patterns that Vazix recognized with horror. They were designed to trigger seizures in his species' neural structure. His staff began to collapse around him, their synapses overloaded by the precisely calibrated assault. "Fascinating thing about your biology," Blackwood continued conversationally as chaos erupted. "So advanced in some ways, so vulnerable in others. Your scientists documented everything so meticulously while they were taking us apart. Really helped me plan this reunion." Through blurring vision, Vazix saw the last security feed showing Blackwood stepping over unconscious guards, moving with deliberate purpose toward the command center. He wasn't wearing the bulky armor Vazix had expected. Instead, his form was sleek, almost elegant, covered in what appeared to be a second skin of shifting darkness. "That's impossible," Vazix managed through clenched mandibles. "That's prototype tech. It was never successfully tested." "Another thing about humans, Commander. We're really good at improving other species' failures. Now, shall we discuss what happened to my wife and daughter at Research Station 9? I have some very specific questions about their final moments." As his consciousness began to fade, Vazix realized that in all their studies of human physiology and psychology, they'd missed something fundamental. They'd assumed humanity's greatest weapon was their physical adaptability. They should have been more worried about their capacity for patience, their talent for turning an enemy's strength against them, and their absolute, unwavering commitment to vengeance. The last thing Vazix saw before the strobing lights claimed him was a shadow stepping through his command center's doors, moving with the fluid grace of a predator who had all the time in the world to savor its hunt. Vazix awoke to screams, not the panicked cries of his command staff, but the mechanical shrieks of the facility's automated defense systems being torn apart. Through the neural fog, he pulled himself upright, fighting waves of nausea from the strobing assault. "Status report!" he bellowed into the comm, knowing full well the psychological importance of maintaining command presence. "Sir, we've deployed the Mark 7 combat units," reported Captain Nexus, voice tight with tension. "All 20 of them." A pause. Then, 19 units now, sir." 18. 17. Vazix watched in horror as his most advanced battle machines, each worth more than a small planet's GDP, were systematically dismantled. Blackwood wasn't just destroying them. He was learning from each encounter, adapting his tactics with terrifying speed. "Fascinating machines," Blackwood's voice echoed through the facility. "Neural networks based on captured Deathworlder brains, right? Here's the thing about copying predator instincts. The copy's never quite as good as the original." On the security feeds, Blackwood moved like liquid shadow between the massive combat units. His stolen prototype suit shifted colors and textures, confusing their targeting systems. But it was more than that. He was using their programming against them, making them fire on each other, turning their coordinated attack patterns into deadly crossfire. "Sir," Lieutenant Cora's voice cracked, "he's not just destroying them, he's infecting them with something. The intact units are turning on our own forces." Vazix felt his exoskeleton grow cold. The combat units were supposed to be isolated systems, impossible to hack or reprogram in the field, unless— "Remember those neural interface experiments you ran on us?" Blackwood's voice was almost cheerful now. "Turns out, if you survive them, they leave you with some interesting capabilities. Your machines think I'm their command hub now. Hope you don't mind me borrowing them." Through the facility's speakers came a new sound, a human musical composition. Vazix recognized it from their cultural databases, Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. "Really?" Captain Nexus asked nobody in particular. "He's playing music during a massacre?" "Oh, this isn't just music," Blackwood replied, having apparently heard. "This particular piece has a fascinating history. Humans used to play it during military operations to terrify their enemies. Psychological warfare, one of our specialties." The remaining combat units moved in perfect synchronization with the music's rhythm, their weapons now turned against their former masters. The facility's corridors became killing grounds as Confederation troops fled from their own mechanical protectors. "Sir," a terrified voice reported, "the lower ranks, they're deserting. They're saying he's not just a human, he's something worse. A ghost, a demon." "Control yourselves," Vazix roared. "He's one being against an entire military facility." "Am I?" Blackwood's voice came from everywhere at once. "Are you sure about that, Commander? Your sensors must be showing multiple signatures by now. Hard to tell which one's real, isn't it?" He was right. The facility's detection systems were registering dozens of human thermal signatures, all moving with the same deadly grace. Holocams showed flickering shadows that appeared human one moment, dissolved the next. "Impressive tech you developed here," Blackwood continued. "Quantum ghost imaging, biomimetic camouflage, neural hijacking suites. Must have cost a fortune. Must have cost a lot of lives, too. Human lives." The music reached a crescendo as another squad of Confederation troops ran straight into their own reprogrammed combat units. The resulting firefight was brief and decisive. "You know what the real irony is?" Blackwood's voice dropped to an intimate whisper. "Everything you did to us, every torture, every experiment, every violation, it was all to understand what makes humans such effective warriors. And now you're getting a practical demonstration." Captain Nexus's voice came through thick with fear. "Sir, he's herding the surviving troops, using the combat units to drive them toward—" "Toward what?" Vazix demanded. "Toward the biochemical weapons storage, sir. If those containers rupture—" Vazix felt his heart stutter. The biochemical weapons were designed specifically to target his species' unique biology. If they were released— "Don't worry, Commander," Blackwood said soothingly. "I'm not going to rupture your weapon stockpile. That would be crude, inelegant. No, I have something much more interesting planned." The music changed to something slower, more menacing. Through the chaos of battle and the screams of the dying came Blackwood's voice, reciting what seemed to be an ancient human military axiom. "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Your own Sun Tzu wrote that. Well, not your Sun Tzu. Ours. You should have studied our military philosophy as carefully as you studied our bodies." On the monitors, Vazix watched his surviving troops barricade themselves in the facility's supposedly secure areas, terror of the unseen human overriding their training, their discipline, their very nature. In trying to create the perfect weapon, they had instead created their perfect nightmare. And somewhere in the facility, moving like a ghost between shadows, Marcus Blackwood continued his hunt, his stolen technology and enhanced abilities transforming him into something that would haunt Confederation military doctrine for generations to come. The music played on, and the hunt continued, and Vazix finally understood that this was never just about revenge. This was a lesson, written in blood and fear, about the true nature of humanity's superiority. Not their strength, not their technology, but their capacity to learn from their enemies and turn every advantage against them. Vazix slammed his fist against the command console, watching his facility crumble around him. The quantum-encrypted emergency beacon remained stubbornly silent. No reinforcements would come. They were alone. "Execute Protocol Omega," he commanded, voice hoarse. "Overload the fusion reactors. If we're going down, we're taking him with us." "About those reactors," Blackwood's voice drifted through the speakers, accompanied by a low chuckle. "Funny story. Remember how your scientists were so interested in human problem-solving capabilities? Well, I solved quite a few problems while you were unconscious, including how to lock you out of your own power systems." The main screen flickered to life, showing security footage that made Vazix's heart stop. Not from the present, but from 3 cycles ago. Research Station 9. "I found your personal logs, Commander, the ones even your superiors don't know about. Let's watch them together, shall we?" The footage showed humans, dozens of them, in containment cells. Among them, a woman and a young girl, their features hauntingly similar to Blackwood's. "Stop," Vazix whispered. "No, I don't think I will. See, this isn't just about revenge anymore. This is about exposure, about truth, about showing the galaxy what the mighty Confederation really is." Another screen lit up, showing transmission data. Everything, the classified files, the experiment footage, the personal logs, was being broadcast on emergency frequencies across multiple sectors. Your careers, your reputations, your carefully maintained facade of civilized superiority. It's all gone. Right now, every species in the Confederation is learning what you did, how you kidnapped civilians, how you experimented on children. Vazix felt the walls closing in. Not just physically, his entire world was collapsing. "We were trying to understand, to adapt. Your species emerged from a death world, survived countless extinction events. We needed—" "You needed to feel superior," Blackwood cut him off, "to prove you could control something you feared. Well, congratulations. You created exactly what you wanted, a human weapon. You just lost control of it." Through the remaining security feeds, Vazix watched his last defensive positions fall. Not to violence now, but to fear. Entire squads surrendered as shadows played across walls, as whispers echoed through corridors, as the weight of their sins finally came due. "Sir," Lieutenant Cora's voice shook, "there's something else, in the deep archives. Project Prometheus wasn't the beginning. There were others. So many others." "Now she gets it," Blackwood said softly. "This facility, these experiments, they were just one node in a network. How many black sites, Commander? How many species have you tortured in your quest for dominance?" The screens filled with more footage, more logs, more horrors. Not just humans, other species, deemed too primitive or too dangerous to be allowed their natural development. "Imagine my surprise," Blackwood continued, his voice taking on an almost professorial tone, "when I discovered that the supposedly advanced, supposedly enlightened Confederation was really just an empire built on fear and exploitation. Imagine how interested the Galactic Council will be in these files." Vazix felt something break inside him. Not his courage, that was long gone. Something deeper, his faith in everything he'd been taught, everything he'd believed about his civilization's superiority. "The amusing part," Blackwood said, now speaking from somewhere in the command center itself, "is that you actually succeeded. You wanted to understand what makes humans dangerous. It's not our strength, or our adaptability, or even our technology. It's our ability to recognize monsters, and our willingness to become whatever we need to become, to stop them." A shadow detached itself from the wall, resolving into a human figure. The prototype suit rippled like oil on water, adapting to the light, making Blackwood seem more phantom than flesh. "Please," Vazix whispered, all pretense of command gone. "I was following orders. I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice. Want to know the real difference between humans and your kind, Commander? We know that. We understand that every atrocity, every horror, comes down to choices made by individuals who decided their goals justified their actions. Blackwood's suit shifted again, becoming mirror-bright, forcing Vazix to see his own reflection distorted across its surface. Look at yourself, really look. See what I see, what my wife saw, what my daughter saw, what every being you've tortured in the name of progress saw. The screens continued their relentless broadcast, spreading the truth across the stars. In the distance, alarms warned of approaching ships, not reinforcements, but investigators, drawn by the damning transmission. "I'm not going to kill you, Commander," Blackwood said quietly. "Death would be too easy. Instead, you're going to live. You're going to stand trial. You're going to watch everything you built crumble. And you're going to remember that in the end, it wasn't superior technology or physical strength that defeated you." He leaned close, his voice barely a whisper. "It was the simple human traits you dismissed: patience, purpose, and the absolute certainty that monsters must be exposed to the light." Vazix slumped in his command chair, surrounded by the ruins of his authority, as Blackwood circled him with predatory grace. The prototype suit shifted between shadows and light, a visual reminder of how thoroughly the human had mastered their stolen technology. "But there's one last thing you don't know," Vazix said, his voice finding a sudden strength. "One last secret that changes everything." Blackwood paused. "Trying to bargain, Commander. A bit late for that. Your wife, your daughter, they're alive." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Blackwood's suit rippled with sudden, violent patterns. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Check sublevel 47. Security block Theta 9. Why do you think this facility was so heavily guarded? Some test subjects proved too valuable to discard." Blackwood's hands moved in a blur, accessing nearby terminals. Security feeds flickered to life, showing a heavily shielded containment area. Inside, suspended in stasis fields, were dozens of human forms. Among them— "No," Blackwood whispered. "No, no, no." "Yes," Vazix rose, his mandibles clicking in satisfaction. "Your family survived the initial experiments. They proved exceptionally adaptable. Like you, they developed abilities. They became too valuable for termination. Of course, keeping them contained required certain precautions." The feeds showed neural suppressors, pain inducers, devices designed to contain enhanced humans. Blackwood's family had been preserved, but at a terrible cost. "You see your choice now, don't you?" Vazix's voice gained confidence. "Continue your exposure of our projects, and they'll be terminated by automated systems, or what?" Blackwood's voice was deadly quiet. "Or we negotiate. You've proved our theories correct. Humans can be enhanced, controlled, weaponized. Join us. Your family will be released. Your abilities could advance our understanding by decades." Blackwood stood very still. When he spoke, his voice carried an emotion Vazix couldn't quite identify. "Did you know humans have a saying? A very old one. Those who hunt monsters should be careful not to become monsters themselves." He turned and his suit melted away from his face, letting Vazix see his expression. The commander recoiled. There was something worse than rage there, something like pity. "I knew they were alive, Commander. I've known for weeks. Why do you think I let myself get captured and experimented on? Why do you think I let your scientists enhance me?" The realization hit Vazix like a plasma bolt. This whole thing, the attack, the broadcasts, the chaos, was a distraction, Blackwood nodded. "While you were focused on me, focused on your precious data and reputation, a team of very skilled, very angry humans was infiltrating sublevel 47. Check your feeds again." The containment cells were empty. Impossible. The security systems were designed by beings who think in straight lines, who see security as walls and barriers and weapons. You never understood that humanity's greatest weapon is cooperation, community. 5 hours ago, while you were unconscious, every test subject in this facility was evacuated. Vazix fell back into his chair. "Then why continue the attack? Why expose everything? Because some monsters need to be dragged into the light, because the galaxy needs to know, and because, Blackwood's smile was terrifying in its gentleness, I needed you to understand your true failure. He gestured, and the facility's systems responded instantly. Screens filled with new data, not just from this facility but from dozens of others. You thought you were studying us, testing us. But we were learning you. Every captured human, every experiment, every torture session taught us more about you. Your weaknesses, your blind spots, your arrogance. The rest of the Confederation will find you, Vazix threatened weakly. Hunt you down. No, Blackwood said simply. They won't. Because right now, humans across the galaxy are exposing every black site, every secret lab, every hidden project. Your entire network is burning. And do you know the best part? He leaned close, his enhanced eyes reflecting Vazix's terror back at him. We didn't need super strength or advanced tech or genetic enhancement to beat you. We just needed what humans have always had: determination, unity, and the unshakable belief that monsters must fall. The distant sound of approaching ships grew louder. Blackwood's suit rippled one last time, preparing to fade away into shadow. Goodbye, Commander. Give my regards to the Tribunal. And remember, everything that happened here, everything you lost, came from one simple mistake. You thought you could cage what you didn't understand. 3 days after the fall of Nexus Prime facility, High Commander Vazix sat in a detention cell, watching the galaxy tear itself apart over the revelations. The news feeds were relentless. Confederation military bases across 17 sectors had fallen, their darkest secrets exposed to the unforgiving light of public scrutiny. The mighty empire that had prided itself on civilization and order now faced revolution from within. The latest reports suggest over 3,000 test subjects were liberated. The newscaster's voice trembled with barely contained rage. Multiple species, all subjected to illegal experimentation. The human resistance movement claims... Vazix switched off the feed, but not before catching a glimpse of the new symbol appearing across the galaxy. A human shadow, repeated in endless variations, becoming the banner of every oppressed species, rising against their tormentors. His guards were no longer Confederation troops, but a mixed-species peacekeeping force. They looked at him with the same expression Blackwood had worn, not hatred, but something far worse. Disappointment. Your trial begins tomorrow, one of them announced. The human called Blackwood sent a message for you. A small holoprojector activated in his cell. Blackwood's face appeared, still wearing that terrifyingly gentle smile. I thought you'd like to know the results of your research, Commander. You wanted to understand human nature? Well, congratulations. You succeeded beyond your wildest dreams. The projection showed scenes from across the galaxy, former test subjects, enhanced by the Confederation's own experiments, now leading the revolution against their captors. Humans fighting alongside dozens of species, sharing techniques, strategies, and that uniquely human gift for turning weakness into strength. The funny thing about humanity, Blackwood's message continued, is that we're not actually the apex predators you feared. We're something far more dangerous. We're teachers. Every time you tortured us, we learned. Every time you enhanced us, we adapted. And most importantly, every time you tried to break us, we showed others how to become unbreakable. The projection shifted to show Blackwood's wife and daughter, recovered and strong, training others in resistance techniques. The sight made Vazix's heart ache with the weight of his failure. Your scientists wrote that humans were unique because we evolved on a death world, but they missed the most important part. We survived not because we were strongest, but because we learned to work together, to protect each other, to rise against common threats. The message ended with a final sardonic observation that would haunt Vazix for the rest of his days. Thank you, Commander, for teaching the galaxy what humanity truly excels at, turning monsters into cautionary tales, and inspiring others to stand up against their oppressors. In trying to cage the human spirit, you released it across the stars. As the projection faded, Vazix realized the true extent of his species' failure. They had wanted to understand humanity's strength, never realizing that their greatest power wasn't in their ability to fight, but in their talent for teaching others to resist. The revolution that followed would be known as the Shadow Rising, and it began with a single human showing the galaxy that the mightiest empires can fall to the simple courage to stand up and say, "No more."